Welcome back. It is for Nelson Holmes on Friday. We're live at the Brandt Center, getting ready for the Pats and Red Deer Rebels tonight, 7 p.m. puck drop if you can't make it down. We're locked kind of in here. I'm not sure what the weather. It's blowing snow. Travel safe wherever you're going today, especially if you're coming down here. And Dante's got the pregame show at 6:30. Play-by-play at 7 o'clock on 620 CKR. Alan Millar joining us from the Regina Pats. Thanks for making some time, Al, today to come by. First off, we were just talking, you guys are going back to Alberta and to Lethbridge and all that. You guys were just there. I'm kind of calling it the little triangle of death, not to, as a guy that's been around the league, we kind of saw it here in Regina a few years ago. Your team goes into that. What are you looking for as a general manager for your young guys going in and playing just teams that are built for the Memorial Cup?
Well, it's not a lot different than 2018 with Regina, Swift Current, and Moose Jaw, the year the Pats were hosting, and what those three teams look like. You could have made the argument that they were the three best teams in the league. And so, obviously Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Calgary are all in. It was a little bit, we were kind of like the Central Division, the gauntlet, the 3-game trip we just had. And we had to do it without Bridgman and Babcock on the back end. So we were rolling out 4 17-year-olds, and we got Hayden Wagner into Medicine Hat in time. Welcome to the league, kid.
Yeah.
We got him into Medicine Hat in time to play. I thought that we hung in real well in Calgary. It was a 3-1 game in the third. I thought we did a good job. The game in Medicine Hat got a little bit away from us with 8 penalties, and they took advantage. And I thought we were really good in Lethbridge. We deserved more, and I thought, the kids played well. They played hard. I think in those situations, what we've talked about in terms of those games is that, we know what we are. We know what we're doing, trying to do. It's about structure. It's about compete. It's about remaining as competitive as we can. And I think for the most part, we've been able to do that. Now we got another trip coming up. I think we start the trip, Edmonton and Red Deer, Edmonton in that order. I think that kind of gets us entrenched in the trip. We've had success against both teams, played well, and then back-to-back 4 and 5 with Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. And sometimes with a young team, you look at the rafters and you try and hang on.
So given that with the young team, how is it helping with the grind of a WHL schedule where they're, it's new to them and it's helping them keep engaged, or is it tough having them have this grueling schedule as we come to the end of the regular season here?
No, we made a decision that we are what we are. We had made the moves up to the point, and a lot of our final discussions that week of the deadline, and moving Chichkin out, moving Wilson out, moving Shantz out. We just looked at, in terms of where we were at, and I never want to say that players were getting in the way, but we needed to play our young guys. We needed the roster management part of the rebuild after the moves, to do what we needed to do. And part of those conversations were, it's hard. It's going to be hard. And there is going to be a Saturday night game in Red Deer and a 1:00 game in Calgary the next day. Well, our young guys need to go through that. Yeah. And, the wins and losses, I never want to say wins and losses aren't important, because we want to remain as competitive as we can. We know what we're building towards. I've told the team that, I'm evaluating how we win and lose as much as I am the actual wins and losses as we go along here. And, we just had to make sure that, again, I've always believed that a big part when you're in a rebuild and a tough one like we are, and the decisions that we've made, a lot of people just say they're making the moves, they're adding a bunch of young guys, they're adding a bunch of draft picks. But if you don't manage your roster to a point that you put those young players in those situations, and you put Peranich and Reese Hamilton in a situation where they're playing at the top or on the side on the power play as 17-year-olds, and you're not playing your young guys, and you don't have an opportunity for Kuzma and Klassen and Lancer to be in the lineup most nights, then you're contradicting what you're trying to do with the moves that you've made. And at the end of the day, some of the players that we didn't see in our plans, next year, we moved them. I couldn't have Dayton Deschamps not playing for Alexei Chichkin. I needed Dayton Deschamps to get those minutes.
Right.
Those were the things that we worked through the process. It's not easy. We understand that. We know that there's hard nights, but we believe. Hope's not a strategy. We believe we're going to be better for it.
That's a great quote. It's a T-shirt. They should sell in the team store. No, and you talk about these young guys, and PA comes in here. They're fighting and clawing for position. They come in last week. You guys beat them, right? Like, it's just, you guys are scrappy. You're like, it's exciting to watch, and knowing that these guys are so young. How challenging is it, because you've seen this rodeo before, how challenging is it, and how important is it to have the right coaching staff when you're dealing with just like such young guys?
Well, it's real important. I always, in these situations, I always go back to the scene in Moneyball with Brad Pitt playing Billy Bean and Art Howe, and he says to him, I can do this all day long, when he makes the moves, because Art Howe's not playing the team the way he built it.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have to do that with our guys here, okay? And Brad Haroff led the charge there, because he's been here a long time. He was through the rigors with John through 17 and 18, the WHL final, the process along the way. Decisions were made not to trade certain players and Bedard, and knew that this was coming. So we were all on the same page. So that was important, because if I'm butting heads with them every day and they're fighting me, we're not moving Chichkin. We need to win games. Deschamps in the stands. We didn't go through that, Barney. We were on the same page, and we've been talking about this since the day I got here.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my evaluation process and part of what we needed to do to get this team to where we wanted it to be. So that was an important part. And then the understanding of how we manage our bench, the positions we put our young players in, trying to balance a winning environment as best we can, but understanding that development is the key, and those young guys got to play, and those young guys got to get better. And I think they've done a real good job. And I think all you have to look at is, and our record's taken a little bit of a hit here with those 3 games in the Central Division, but when we were going through starting to make the moves in November and December, and we had, some of those older guys in the lineup, we lost 8 in a row, won a game, lost 7 in a row. Up till the Central Division trip, since that point, we were playing close to 500 hockey, and we were starting to come. And you talked about the PA game. We're down 2-0 early in the third. We hang in, we find a way. We kill off a big penalty in overtime, which is hard against the number one power play in the league, Mercick and Dragicevic and those guys throwing it around. And then we get in a shootout, and we haven't scored 3 shootout goals all year, never mind in one shootout. And I think that kind of showed a little bit of the youth, a little bit of the skill, Pentelakis, Mays, those types of things. And we were right in that game the other night, 3-2 in the third, and we had a 4-minute power play. We didn't find a way to score, and the game slipped away from us. So it's it's not easy. It's hard. I think that I think this is what we needed to do. And people can agree or disagree. People can disagree the moves we made and what we got in return. But I think in terms of tearing it down, playing the heck out of our young guys, developing, building that draft capital, starting to bring a young core. We like our 09 group a lot. We're going to go into the off season here with a lottery pick in the WHL prospects draft, a high pick in the U.S. prospects draft, high pick in the import draft. We've got a very good player in Vaclav Nestor still playing in Muskegon. That's going to be no worse than a second-round pick in the NHL draft. Work with his NHL team and his agencies to get him here next year. We need to capitalize on those opportunities, and we have the opportunity here to take significant steps and utilize that draft capital we built. Maybe not only the draft, are we going to take 5 players in the first 2 rounds of the upcoming draft? I don't know. I've told Del Durkach, you might not have all 5 of them, and whether we take one of those second rounders and make a move to improve our team, or maybe we push a second round pick to a future draft to use it as a chip to improve our team. with the type of draft capital we have now, it gives us lots of flexibility and options to take those steps and build our team the right way.
That leads me into this question, and I have to ask it because I know everybody's asking me about it. How important is it for this franchise to try and get Maddox Schultz?
Well, I think that we know Maddox Schultz really well, okay, and Dale Durkach, Tristan Fry, Brad Haroff, the group here in Regina, summer hockey camps, Dave Schultz doing some power skating with our team and all those things over the years. The reality of the situation is Maddox is a special player, and he's a special young man in terms of how he's committed and how he invests in his own development. And now we need to see how the rest of the season plays out. Now we need to see how the lottery goes, and then we see where the chips fall, and then we see if we're picking second or third, what does that look like? Has Maddox Schultz, like Connor Bedard, and I don't want to start out those comparisons because nobody wants to go down. But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes players put themselves in a position to be the number one guy in a draft, and regardless of what you can offer, nobody's going to trade that pick. They just can't pass on that. Now, you could go back and say, well, Lethbridge traded the pick that Regina had to get Bedard, and Kamloops traded the pick that ended up being Landon DuPont to Everett, but we'll see how the chips fall.
And you have some capital, right? Like to try, and that's where I was, you mentioned a second, and Edmonton, what if we
we have some capital to be in the game if there's a game to be played. And so that's the part I want to caution on, is that there are situations when you have certain players at the top of the draft that it doesn't matter what you offer. So the best plan for us, or the best, and this is where you have to hope a little bit when there's a lottery involved, is we see how the chips fall, we see how many balls we have in the lottery, and hopefully we win the lottery, and then we go from there.
It's exciting. Sorry, up against the clock. I think we've got about a minute left. Last thing I wanted to ask you about was it's really interesting. You mentioned that you could first pick in the U.S. draft next year.
Well, there's some discussion around the U.S. draft just because of the change in the NCAA rules, and the U.S. draft is now, that's a much more valuable pick than it may have been in the past. So we know by where we're going to place in the standings that we're going to have a good pick in that draft. Yeah. The league, our competitions committee, the general managers are working through some things, and there's meetings coming up in Vegas in a couple weeks that there may be some subtle changes to lotteries and how they do some things. But from my perspective, what I was saying was just that, there is going to be a U.S. draft. We're going to have a high pick in that draft. We got the WHL prospects draft. We're in the lottery. The import draft, we're going to be in the top 5 or 6 picks. Yeah. We hit on all those with everything we've done, then significant steps over the next couple of years.
Well, try your luck in Vegas, and then maybe you'll see if you can. The luck's going to continue to the draft.
That's a low percentage as well.
So, okay, before I let you go, 39 years ago, Youngblood came out. Yeah, 1986.
1986.
People think I'm crazy. It's my favorite hockey movie. Even though it's a little cheesy at times.
Over Slapshot?
I know, over Slapshot. When you think of Youngblood and going back in the day when it came out, what scene, is there anything that you remember that you love about that show?
Well, the first one that came to mind, I can't talk about.
Miss Miguel. Yeah, no. That's everybody. Yeah. Well, we learned a lot as young kids with that show.
You know what? I found it. The coach in the room, yelling at
Chadwick,
threatening that they were going to Flin Flon, or
everyone wants a second house in Bora Bora.
Or you're gonna send you to junior sheets, the Schaumburg Cougars or something. I don't know what teams he mentioned.
Yeah.
Just kind of the Swayze and Rob Lowe and that.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie to watch, but I gotta have Slapshot number one.
Yeah.
I do.
Right on, Al. Thanks so much for coming by. What you're doing, like we see it on the text line all the time, and like you said, people don't get it. We see it in Saskatoon as well. Why are we trading? Why are we trading? This is the process. This is what has to happen. And you guys, knowing now, I guess with a 2011 kid, and I'm watching the 2010s, and it's like we got a lot of capital here, a lot of things that can happen. So best of luck. Let's see what happens tonight against Strushy.
Yeah.
Rolling into town. He's coming on here at about 4. So I appreciate you making time.
Yeah, and just and thanks for that, and thanks to the fans. We understand it's not easy. The support's important, and hopefully they see what we're doing and see the young talent, and I'd say trust the process.
Right on.